Hi everybody! Thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Nicole. I'm on the events team here at Books Are Magic. We're so excited to have Hannah Pittard and Karah Preiss with us tonight to celebrate the launch of If You Love It, Let It Kill You. Before we get started, I just want to point out some logistics for how tonight's event is going to go. You need to use the restroom. The door is right here. We'll be doing a hand-raised audience Q&A towards the end of the discussion, so start thinking of your questions now. After the talk tonight, Hannah will be signing and personalizing books at the table. Next to where you checked in, we'll tell you where to go when that happens. If you're joining us virtually on the YouTube live stream, we'd love to encourage you to buy a copy of the book online using the link in the live stream description. A refreshing and reverent novel about art, desire, domesticity, and freedom of the 21st century female experience. Divorced and childless by choice, Hannah P. has built a cozy life in Lexington, Kentucky, teaching at the university, living with her boyfriend, a fellow academic, and helping raise his preteen daughter. One day, Hannah learns that an unflattering version of herself will appear predominantly and soon in her ex-husband's debut novel. A remarkably ridiculous midlife crisis ensues, featuring a talking cat, a visit to the dean's office, a shadowy figure from the past, a Greek chorus of indignant students whose primary complaints concern Hannah's autofictional narrative, and a game called Dead Body. Steeped in the subtleties and strangeness of contemporary life, If You Love It, Let It Kill You is a deeply nuanced and disturbingly funny examination of memory, ownership, and artistic expression. Hannah Pittard is the author of 6 books, including the novels Listen to Me, Visible Empire, The Fates You'll Find Their Way, and the memoir We Are Too Many. She's a winner of McSweeney's Amanda Davis Highwire Fiction Award, a Ragdale and McDowell Fellow, and the Guy M. Davenport Professor of English at the University of Kentucky. She lives in Lexington with her boyfriend and As I mentioned before, Karah joins Hannah in a conversation tonight. Karah Preiss is a creative producer living in New York City. She co-founded Bellatrix Book Club with actress Emma Roberts, along with Bellatrix Productions, a TV and film production company. So without further delay, please join me in welcoming Hannah and Karah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, there she goes.
Yeah, that was lovely. Thank you.
You want to read first?
Really short.
If you read it, let it kill you.
If I read it, yeah. Okay. First of all, thank you all for being here. And by the way, I love that everyone looked at you and boyfriend like that whole side went over there.
Well, if you've read the book.
Yeah. But Bruce is a tool, and my boyfriend is not. Just to be clear. He might have paid me to say that. Okay, really quickly, I think it takes 5 to 6 minutes if I stop talking. It's March 1st. I'm home alone watching my 80-year-old neighbor, the mathematician, haul his Christmas tree to the front yard. I don't know if we're going to get through a reading. It's still got the colored lights wrapped around it. Last year, from inside our house, the blinds divided. I watched as the mathematician dropped his tree at the curb, bent down, then proceeded to dig through its branches like a man checking for lice. It was drizzling. After several minutes, he'd gone all the way down to his knees. He stood up, turned towards his house, and raised one hand high. He was holding an ornament. I told myself his wife was inside watching. Then I set down my binoculars and took a picture. He wasn't smiling. Today, I am sitting on our front steps and I am brazenly observing him. It's 65 degrees and sunny. The clouds are caricatures of themselves. I take a picture when his back is turned and send it to my boyfriend, Bruce. Bruce hearts the photo. I write, anything from grocery? He writes, bananas. I don't add them to the list. This year alone, we've already thrown away 16 bananas. I know this because I started keeping track immediately. Because I realized on New Year's morning, first thing when I woke up, that the banana situation in this house wasn't magically going to fix itself just because it was a new year. When the 11-year-old, my stepdaughter, asked for my resolution, I said, to track your father's banana waste. Bruce, who was in the kitchen with us at the time, said, that's funny. I got out my phone, lifted the trash can's lid, and counted the bananas. I wrote down bananas 4. Then I shared the note with him. It's possible he's joking about the bananas today, but it's also possible he wants them and will be mildly annoyed when he gets home from teaching and finds I've ignored his request. Tone is so difficult via text. I try always to contextualize mine with emojis, usually face smacks and smiling turds. At the grocery store, a place I love, provided I park at street level and not in the garage, which is a place I'll never park, and therefore I can't say for sure that I'd still love the grocery store were I forced to park there. I watch as the man entering just in front of me grabs a cart and steers away from produce in the direction of dairy. I shiver, then text my friend Jane, "Would you ever date a man who didn't start with produce first?" She texts back immediately, "I will never date another man." I text, "Because you're married." She texts, "Because I hate men." I send her a smiling turd. At the wet wall, which is what grocery employees call the wall of produce, which is a term I know because my non-traditional scholar called the local Kroger to get the right lingo for a story she handed into workshop, I swipe from my grocery list over to Instagram. Margaret Atwood has posted a humorously ruined birthday cake. It's not her birthday. In the comments section, under hundreds of hearts and best wishes, I write, "What am I doing in this old man's body?" From Soul by David Ferry. I am desperate for Margaret to notice me. I switch back to my list, check off carrots and kale and green onions. All that's left is celery, which is how I got into trouble the last time I was here alone. All I needed was 2 stalks from a mirepoix. I snapped 2 off, threw them in a bag, and kept on shopping. An employee, some kid, was apparently spying on me when I did it. He ratted me out to his manager, who caught up with me in the sparkling water aisle. He pointed at my cart and said, "Is that yours?" Because I didn't yet know how or why I was in trouble, and not because I was playing deliberately obtuse, I said, "The cart?" He said, "The celery." I said, "The celery is mine and that I intend to buy it. Is this an existential question?" He said, "That's not allowed." I said, still not being willfully obtuse, "I'm not allowed to buy celery." He said, "You're not allowed to break off stalks." I said, "I'm not?" He said, "No." I said, "But it's by the pound." He said, "There's a rubber band around it for a reason." I said, "There is?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Maybe you should have a sign." The manager regarded me mutely. I said, "I do it all the time with the bananas." "Everybody does it with the bananas." He said, "Bananas are different." I said, now developing a feel for my obtuseness, "They are?" He said, "Obviously." I said, "Bananas are by the pound." He said, "Please hand me that celery." I said, "But you're joking." He said, "If you want celery, you can buy the whole bunch." Just when I was about to start laughing at the absurdity of the situation, whereby this manager figure was apparently intent on taking my 2 stalks of celery, I suddenly became very sad. I thought, oh my God. And then, this is real? This is my real life? This is really happening in my real life, in which I am a person who spends too much time in a grocery store looking at Instagram and gets in trouble for not following the rules. And oh my God, this is not what my life was supposed to be, is it? I handed the manager my celery, abandoned my cart, walked out of the store, and then all the way home. When I opened the front door, Bruce looked at me for a very long time. Then he went to the side entrance of our house, opened that door, and looked in our driveway. He said, "Where's your car?" Oh. I said, "At the grocery store." He said, "Where are the groceries?" I said, "Same place." Then I started crying. Now, a week later, Bruce texts again, "I'm serious about the bananas, FYI." In the pasta aisle, where I will buy nothing because I make my own pasta, but which is an aisle that gets excellent cell service, I check Instagram again. No message from Atwood. When I get home from the store, my neighbor is standing next to his car, which is parked now on the street near the Christmas tree, and he's attempting to inflate a rear tire with a bicycle pump. I pull only partway into my driveway, roll down the window, and take a picture. I am losing my decency. By the way, when my actual boyfriend read that, he said, "Did that happen with the celery?" And I was like, "No, it's fiction." Anyway, thank you. It's fiction.
Because it's fiction.
It's fiction.
Right.
Yes.
Let me ask you a question to begin with. What is autofiction to you?
A performance.
Mm-hmm.
A performance. Obviously, right? Like, it's fiction with an autobiographical bent. But for me, it is, I think, an extension of something that I realized I've been doing my entire life, which is, shuffling the deck and experimenting with which aspect of me is. It's because of you, Helen, that I'm thinking of decks and cards. We have a professional
Is she a
poker player.
magician? Oh.
No, a professional poker player. But it's, I think of it typically like a stack of papers, but right now I'm thinking of it as like shuffling the deck. And there's a decision that you make about like which card is on top, and that's the thing that's closest to the surface at a particular time. And autofiction has been a way to, I murder expressions, but I'm going to get this one right. Have my cake and eat it too.
That's
Did I get it?
Yes.
I got it. Typically, I speak like a Russian mistress in a Roth novel. Like, I cannot get euphemisms, but I got that one. Thank you.
That was right.
Thank you.
So this book is a work of autofiction.
Yeah.
You would say.
Yeah.
It was just interesting because I think about the definition of autofiction because I guess I read a lot of it, even though I don't know that I'm reading it.
I didn't know I was reading it either for a long time.
Right. But it is a whole category.
Yeah.
And yours fits into the category because there's a lot of similarities between you and the protagonist, and also your life and the protagonist's life.
For sure. Yeah. So there are obviously there are overlapping interests and details. But what's interesting to me as a reader of autofiction, and again, I was reading it for a long time before I knew what this expression was. Like Sheila Heti, right, is the first thing that comes to mind. But then once you start digging, you're like, oh, Tim O'Brien, oh, Tolstoy, right? You can just like take it back and back and back. I'm always prepared to defend this genre. And like I can get into it. Somebody told me recently it was a female genre, and I was like, okay, let's go. Like,
right.
Like
Tim O'Brien,
sleeves up. Yeah. I've already not answered your question.
No, you have.
Okay.
You have.
Yeah.
With that, my question is, and this is not a hardball question, I swear. When you published a memoir, why did you feel as though you also had a novel in you after writing that memoir? They're incredibly different, but I think some might ask that.
Sure.
About after you publish a memoir.
When I wrote the memoir, that I was not thinking about this book.
Got it.
This book was like, it was not an unborn baby that I saw in someone's eyes, right? There's that great Irish, sometimes I see my unborn baby in her eye. Yeah, something like that. I had not been anticipating this book or thinking about this book. I mean, I knew that there would be another book, and I assumed that it would probably be fiction because fiction is what I'd always written, and the memoir kind of sneaked up on me during COVID. I think a lot of people's interests changed, or the world changed, so I think a lot of people changed. And for me, my interest momentarily went to, I wanted things that anchored me in reality, because I felt like everything outside my door was so bizarre and strange. So nonfiction was a path through to something solid. And when I finished it, everything that was in my memoir, which is about my ex-husband's affair with a close friend, I put that to bed. It wasn't something that I thought about anymore. Those conversations that I used to think about, they were gone. And that it used to be a sort of party favor, the memoir, before it became a memoir. People, especially if you live in a small-ish town, I live in a city, but it feels like a small town. It's in the South. And I moved there with a husband, and then one day he was gone and I was still there. And people would say, when they found out that I was willing to talk about an affair, that's kind of a fun, juicy thing to hear about. Sex is fun to hear about, especially if it's somebody else's like traumatic thing. And when they learned that I would be, irreverent about it, that's kind of a fun party favor. And it was one day when I was talking to, yes, I'm from the South, so I'm going to say this amazing expression, the family realtor. I didn't mean to have a family realtor, but I had one, and then my mother had the same one, and then my sister had it. So now we have like a family realtor. And she was like, Hannah, tell that funny story where you say that thing about like you get the house, the car, the dog. And I was telling the story like on command, party favorite trick. And then one day, like my husband and I said, I get the house, the car, the dog, and they're laughing. They're just dying of laughter. And I've told the story by this point like 3,000 times. And I think it was around then I was like, I should really monetize this. Like I need this. I'm giving this away for free, right? So then I wrote it, and it turned out nobody wanted to buy that story. They were like, it's actually so much better when you just like come to a house and tell this story for free. We don't really want to buy it. It's also depressing. So, but then, and this is how we get back to this book that is not actually at all to do with my divorce or my ex-husband, except one thing, which is he wrote a book, awesome, used our lives, fine, right? I used my life in my book, but he did this other thing that really blew my effing mind when I found out from my agent that he had a book coming out. Obviously, I did the thing that any curious person would do. I Googled him, and I was trying to find like early examples of the book, anything I could. Like, why? I don't know. I couldn't stop it, but I just needed to know, right? And I couldn't find anything about the book. But I did find a short story that had been out there in the world for 3 years. This is what boggled me. 3 years. And it's a good story, by the way. I actually really like this story. And there is a person who is me. It is undeniably me because, well, there's somebody that is undeniably my boyfriend. Undeniably, there's a stepdaughter. She's been tenured in 3 years. Like, you can just check off all the things, right? Also, I'm bourgeois, like he's bohemian, like check. But then I die. He murders me.
Yep.
And that was the thing. I was just like, expletive, son of a, like fill in the jelly bean, like son of a jelly bean. He murdered me in this like piece of fiction. And I literally said, like, I've been walking around for 3 years with no idea. Like, I've been dead for 3 years, which cracked me up. And, you know, I said it to my real boyfriend. I was like, for 3 years, I've been walking around with no idea. He did not think this was funny. So then I called my friend Ada, and I'm like, for 3 years. And Ada thinks it's hilarious. But then she's like, this is actually quite troubling. So then I get off the phone with her and I call my sister. Like, I'm just looking for somebody with my sense of humor. And my sister's like, that's hilarious. Like, that's great. So then that becomes my punchline. And I really thought that that was the end of it, that like, now I have my new anecdote. Nobody wants to hear about like the divorce anymore. That's fine. But my new party trick is I was murdered.
Yeah.
My ex-husband murdered me in a piece of fiction. But then I realized I was really thinking about it a lot. And by realize, I mean the same day that it happened. And so then I started this book. But I didn't mean to start the book. I was trying to make my boyfriend laugh. And I think I was also trying to like get some of this nervous energy out at realizing that I had been murdered. And so I was getting this nervous energy out. And then it became a way to really accidentally, I started thinking about what it is that I do, that we do, that anybody who's a writer and is borrowing from their real lives or stealing from their real lives. And the fact that, you know, I think I trespass all the time. And I've definitely thought about the ways that I've trespassed, mostly with my family, you know, like I think because my sister has signed off on it, because, you know, my brother signed off on it, because my family loves me and they're just like, okay, we might really be annoyed with you, but we're going to ultimately be okay. And we realized like, this is what Hannah does. But it was when I got appropriated that I really started thinking about it. And then I wanted to write about it. And I thought this is something worth, for me, this is something worth exploring. And there's an epiphany that happens in the book that completely in real life happens. It is, you know, I say that the book is a performance, and it is, and it's fiction, but where Hannah P ends up at the end, this kind of like feeling, is where I landed too. I truly came to understand what any of us are doing. I feel the way that she feels at the end.
Can you share a little bit more about that? I mean, it's a little. It's funny when, because of the way the novel is, that is sort of giving away a little bit of it.
Well, I would just say this. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that I'm comfortable with what I'm doing and with what's been done to me. I think it's fair game, right?
Yeah.
So I would say, like, in general, happy endings kind of make me crazy. And like, I want to throw a book on the floor when it's too happy. And I wouldn't say that this is a happy ending, but I would say that there is like contentment, which is what Hannah P is like. She craves stability and also hates the idea of being domesticated. I mean, she is like a walking, sort of tangle of competing desires. And I would say I am a walking tangle of competing desires. And I suspect like almost everyone in the room is, like, we walk around all the time, and there are certain desires that are incompatible with the lives that we've built for ourselves. And for me, what's great about writing is that you get to have a little bit of both. Like, you can pretend a different version of yourself, having a different, you can put yourself in proximity to danger. I'm like a dolphin.
Yeah.
Do you guys know about these dolphins and the pufferfish?
No.
Jeff does. My boyfriend knows about this, because I will, when I get my hands on a metaphor, like, I just like clamp onto a clamp. You clamp onto something. Apparently, dolphins have figured out that pufferfish, though toxic and can kill you if you eat them, can get you a little high if you nudge them. So they go around nudging pufferfish and they get a little bit high, but they don't eat them because they don't want to die. So I feel like
That's how Bill Clinton smoked weed.
well, okay, so you're the one who put me in conversation with Bill Clinton, and I think that's a perfect night.
But that's what
Thank you.
But
Yeah. You see what I'm saying? It's just
totally.
like, and writing, you get to perform a proximity to danger without actually. I'm the dolphin, and like autofiction is the pufferfish. I'm just like,
But also you're
checking
the
it out.
pufferfish too.
I'll take that. Yeah.
In other
Oh yeah, I've
situations.
definitely. Yeah, somebody was nudging me for
That's
sure.
right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And you're at peace with that.
Yeah.
So-
I have to be.
It's so strange. I mean, when does this sort of, does it ever,
When does it end?
well, when does the meta end? Because it's like, I remember where it's, even for me, it's a little bit meta, because I remember last year when the article came out and reading that article, and I go, I know Hannah Pittard. That's so weird. I remember her because we chose her book for Bellatrix, Invisible Empire, and now she's involved in this article that nobody is shutting the fuck up about. And then you said you were writing a novel, which had elements of the piece that everyone had read in New York Magazine. And then you said, will you talk to me about my book at Books Are Magic? And now we're talking about your book, which is about something that happened that was then documented. And it's like, and I said this to you before, it's like, we're in like this is like the literary fiction cinematic universe that, like, I don't know if it's as popular as Marvel, certainly, but like, there's no question in this. You must like consider it to a certain degree.
Well, I have no control over what else happens in this universe, right?
Right.
And that's part of real, like, letting go is just, it's beyond my control. I know that currently I do not have plans to continue this particular, like in the form of writing on pages that can be acquired like this.
And published.
Yes, and published.
Yeah.
It is not my plan to continue the universe. But that being said, I don't know what it's like if I get pufferfished again, if I'm the pufferfish, and like, I don't know. I mean, when I was interviewed for the New York piece, Chris Heath was in Kentucky for 3 days, and the whole time, it's an intense thing to have somebody come and interview you for 3 days who's read everything you've ever read, and they also can quote at you things that it sounds like something that you might have said 15 years ago, and you're just like, well, that's ridiculous. I must have said it, but you know. So that was a really surreal experience, and the whole time that experience was happening, I was thinking, how am I not going to write about this? Like, how do you not write about this? But I didn't. So that, I guess that's like restraint.
Right, because you'd already been working. This novel
This book was already done.
Right.
Yeah, this book was already done.
So that's, I mean, in a way,
I've really
helped.
put this baby to bed.
Yeah, you put it, but it's all, it's just, I mean, there is something kind of, it's not fun, but there is something kooky about it.
Yeah.
That people can't look away from. And it hopefully will sell books. That's the big one that people forget.
I have no problem saying this. I would like to sell books. Yes. I am a writer who would like to sell books.
That's right.
I hope
Why
maybe
not?
that makes me really uncool.
No.
I'm a writer who likes to be read. I like to read my own writing aloud. Like if I tell my students all the time, I love teaching, and I especially love teaching undergraduates. They're just like, there's so much energy. And I learn a lot, especially now that I'm getting older. I literally learn a lot from them. Like their vocabulary cracks me up. And I now play a part with them. I have a persona in the classroom where I pretend not to understand certain things. And then every once in a while, I whip out like that I know what a TikTok is, and they just die that I put that article in front of it, like a TikTok. Yeah. They just love it. Got it. Yeah. But I tell my students all the time that this is getting back to me saying that I like reading what I write and that I read it aloud. It's that's a form of work. Like if you're stuck, if you've hit a wall, there's a certain form of procrastination that can still be creative, like thinking of a title. You can't write today. Perhaps today is the day you think of a title. So
Right.
like walk around and come up with your title, and then you get to say you wrote today. And some writing days are better than others.
But one day you must have come up with this title because you couldn't write, or no?
This is like a family. My father is an "if you love it, let it kill you" kind of guy.
Yeah.
We're enthusiasts, all excess, or go home.
Gild the lily, so to speak.
I understand what that means.
Yeah.
I think
Good.
yes. I know what the words mean, and I can apply them.
It was very interesting to me that you wrote this novel and you also wrote Visible Empire, because they're like wicked different, they say in Boston. Where did you, or I guess sort of when did you decide some of the more surrealistic elements of the novel would exist in a book that was also very much grounded in the reality of your life?
Okay, so the students are really important to how this book came. And when I talked about I learn a lot from my students, part of that is letting go of my very strict sense of what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. As a writing teacher, I certainly came at teaching initially. I've been doing it for like 2 decades, which means that I am surprisingly older than 25. I know. I didn't start teaching when I was 5. But when I first started teaching, it was very much, my rules were, literally no talking cats, no vampires, give me dead grandmas, and, you can't pay the bills, and like breakups. Like, let's keep it real. Let's focus on terms of the heart, because world building is really hard. And what I realized was world building is really hard for me. It's not necessarily hard for them. And a lot of my students really wanted to build worlds, and they were actually good at building worlds. And so I wasn't allowing them to do that. And when COVID struck, everything changed in the classroom. Everything changed for my students. And then everything also changed for me as a teacher, because you had to, it was just different. And I felt like, who was I to say that if they wanted to build worlds as their method of escape, I wanted to write nonfiction as my method of, grounding and escaping from the irreality outside the house. So who was I to say, you can't do this thing that's going to help you through this traumatic moment? So I became just like much more open in the classroom. And then I imagined how they might think of me. My students don't read my writing.
Why?
I don't know, but they don't.
Dicks.
You said that, and but they don't. And but I have a lot of imaginary conversations. I like to think that everyone does this, especially when I don't sleep. I get into amazing fights with my boyfriend all the time. Just amazing. And I'm ready to go. I know what I'm going to say when like we actually have the fight, and we never get to have the fight. So I never get to say the amazing thing. But I would hear my students sort of making fun of me sometimes when I was writing. And they became, my idea of them became one of the things in this book, and sort of the surreal aspects of it, them speaking almost as a chorus, and pushing back against my, strict ways of thinking about art, qua art. And then, one day there was the cat on my porch, that my neighbors have a cat, I don't have a cat. And maybe I go too far because I bought the cat a brush, and maybe I bought the brush to make sure it matched the chairs so that the neighbors can't see that I am petting their cat. And, like, my boyfriend was just like, do we think that this is a line that we oughtn't have crossed, like the cat brush? And I was just like, I don't know. But I was outside writing this book, and because I am in Kentucky. So yes, I sit on a front porch, and yes, I write as much as I can on the front porch in Kentucky. So I was out there writing this book, and Milo, who I call Mino, and this is another thing that is a trespass, right? Like, I've changed its name, which is all sorts of problematic. So Milo was over, and typically he was allowed in my lap whenever I was outside. But once I was deep into this book, I didn't want to stop because he was over, and he was like sitting there looking at me. He was just like, you could just tell that he was like, what the fuck? Like, you just, and like every expletive this cat was. And then I started talking to the cat, then I started laughing, then I started writing the cat being mean to me. And that was wonderful. Once I understood that the cat was a way to inflict punishment on me, and like a nasty lens, and by on me I mean the character, the persona of me, that was wonderful. That was just the best.
You make writing seem very fun, whereas a lot of writers make it seem horrible, but you make it seem very fun.
I think it's
I just
both
was noticing
and.
that as you're talking. Yeah, it's both and.
It's
probably.
both and,
Yeah.
right? Like
it seems like you had a fun experience. The actual writing of the novel, maybe there were some difficulties as far as
when
way
you
the
have a
story
good
came to you.
day, it's really fun. And then when you don't have good days, it's just like, what am I doing? This is torture, and I'm inflicting it on myself. And but yeah, like when you get lost in it, you can really lose time, like literally lose time. I know, I was looking to see if we were getting the hand signal too.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's that.
All right,
there
we
go.
got the hand
Okay.
signal. Okay, fair enough. That was wrap it up, I guess.
Was that wrap it up, or is that Q&A?
The Q&A. Yeah, Q&A, but we can't talk anymore. They've silenced us.
Okay. Unless there are no questions.
Unless there are no questions, but I have a feeling. But thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you for
You were
being here to
wonderful.
ask me those questions. You're also a lot like me, where I teach graduate students, and we have thesis defenses, and my colleagues are so wonderful. They always come with questions because that's what you're supposed to do. But I just come with, like, I just want to talk about it as though we are moving into, you're now, a colleague of mine. So I do a lot of, and here's what I think. That wasn't a question. It was just something I thought, and hope they can pick up the ball and, start talking. So I really appreciate that.
Well, that's the only way I know. Does anybody have a question?
I do.
Please.
Sorry, my name is Annie, and I'm also a writer and a college professor. I teach for CUNY. I can relate with the writer when she talks about her student, the undergraduate. But I have just two quick questions. The first is, do you like, how long did it take you to complete this book? And the second is, do you write mostly during the semester or during the breaks?
These are really good questions. I have been told that I am a fast writer who is impatient, and that I should slow down and have more patience. And I am working on that.
Okay.
So I wrote it quickly. I write very quickly, but I also don't write.
2 years? A year, 6 months, a week?
A year? I don't know. A year,
don't know?
maybe
Yeah,
a year.
okay.
Yeah, I think a year. I think it was a year. But hot and cold. The gushes of writing and then nothing, and then gushes of writing and then nothing. I try to take advantage between semesters.
Thank you.
I really try, and sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. I used to make horrible fun. This is like before I was a published writer, and this shines a kind of lens on what a rigid teacher I was at the beginning, 20 years ago. I used to make so much fun of NaNoWriMo. I was like, real writers don't do NaNoWriMo. Guess who did NaNoWriMo in November and wrote 30,000 words? I did. The whole time I was up there.
NaNoWriMo?
National Novel Writing Month. I'm like,
God.
I
She
believe
said
in
that like we're all supposed to
NaNoWriMo.
know.
Yeah, my first publicist is in the room, Michael McKenzie. He probably knows that, like, I was like, I think you even said, do you want to like help out with NaNoWriMo? They want to like, and I was just like, no, I would never. Yeah. And I was like, no, Hemingway didn't have anything to do with NaNoWriMo. You know who would have something to do with NaNoWriMo right now? I would. I love it. Like, I wrote because I just told myself and I told my family, I said, you guys don't let me watch TV. I'm going to want to make some 4-hour dinners. Don't let me do it. Like, I love to take a 20-minute New York Times dinner. I have this joke thing that I do, like a podcast that isn't real, but I record it in my mind when I'm cooking. And in the podcast, I take 20-minute New York Times recipes and I turn them into 2 to 4 hours. And and the book is called, I actually think I pitched this, Maria, to you, like the first year of COVID. I was like desperate for anything. I was like, life doesn't make sense outside. And it was going to be, my cookbook was like how not to be a stepmother or how to be a really good stepmother.
But that is a book.
Yeah.
Nonfiction.
Right. But you take a 20-minute meal and like, it's all of it. It's like, first you open the Chardonnay.
Right.
Then you dice the onions, but then you clean. Like, I like to clean after I want Tom Colicchio to walk into my house at any minute and be like, your station is clean. This is a clean station. Seriously, my stepdaughter will come in and she's like, Tom Colicchio would be happy. Like, I have a stepdaughter who knows that my station is clean, but I also have a stepdaughter now that's she's like, what are we having for dinner? And I'm like, well, the mirepoix got burned, so we're pivoting to it's ridiculous. So I told them for November, I was just like, you cannot,
NaNoWriMo.
don't let me enjoy dinner. Don't pull this Riverdale on me. Don't introduce me to Riverdale. Have you guys seen this? Like, we're the last people in America to see Riverdale. I'm like, this is a great show, but we've learned it's about to jump the shark. We haven't gotten to, I'm sensing where it's going, but
Thank
yeah.
you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Comments. Don't be discouraged when your student don't read your materials because it happens to me too. But this is the thing. Only his own town is a prophet without honor. You can do everything you do, but your own people, your own students say, they'll read better. But later they will read. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I know this is fiction, but you said this was true about you too. And I'm actually curious if you could go a little deeper as to why it upset you so much that your ex killed you. I think everybody laughed in the room, and as if it's like, under everybody would understand that, but I'm not sure what that's about. Is that about somehow you felt like you were really killed, or there was so much anger at you in the world, or I'm just curious.
So I want to say again, I loved this story. It was probably my favorite thing that he's written. And so I was envious of that and happy for him. And like a little bit, this is really patronizing. I think pride is like a patronizing idea. But I was proud of him, but also like somewhat curious and surprised. But there were also some overlapping elements in the story that caught me off guard. I could check off all those things that made me connect to think that I was the character that got murdered in his story that I mentioned earlier. But there were other things as well that were kind of like, I used to sleep with a switchblade under my mattress, and then sometimes a can of mace, and I would always attach a string to it, for easy access. Very practical. I was a practical, paranoid person. And it was in one of my books. And so it showed up in his story. I think there was a lot that was frustrating me. Well, I wouldn't use those words because I'm being recorded. But I would say that there were many things that felt uncomfortable about it. And I think the thing that I could poke at and that I could point to, because everything else felt a little bit slippery and tenuous, but the murder felt very particular, and I could say, now this, for sure, I can point at and say, that I have a problem with. But it's also, here I am. Like, obviously, I'm not dead, but because I am somebody who lives a lot of her time in her own mind. I don't know. Writing about it was just a way to push through that. Yeah. So I think I was cathecting on the murder because it was the thing that felt most obvious to cathect on, where the other stuff was more dangerous and more upsetting and more difficult to prove and perhaps not worth proving.
Good answer.
Good question. No more from you. Lock that up.
Are people, it's not just people from this audience, right?
Okay.
Right, from reality.
So, you said that writing from a cat's point of view is something new for you.
Yes.
What else have you done that's new for you? Something else outside of writing.
Are you setting? Do I have an answer that I haven't said? Do you know of an answer? Oh, well, I've recently. Thank you.
Oh, this is a personal question.
I know it. Okay. I've been. I love the word cathect, so now I'm going to cathect on cathecting. When I get really into things, I get really into them. I'm a family of enthusiasts. What is that on the Enneagram? I can't remember. I have a particular number. I'm also an achiever, so I should remember. But I'm an enthusiast. I'm an enthusiastic achiever. So right now I'm really into batiking, which is just a fancy way of saying tie-dyeing.
Yeah.
But I say batiking because it's particular, like I'm very attached to the indigo. So I only do indigo.
Interesting.
The color indigo. And like
How
if
can
you
only use one you were waiting for that.
No, it's the only color I want. You only get one color. I mean, it's the color I order. So therefore, I
But
batik
isn't
with,
tie-dye multicolor?
that's why I batik.
Oh, okay,
I'm
got it.
And so I have recently batiked the house. The bed is batiked, the comforter is batiked, the sheets are batiked, my t-shirts are batiked. It is possible
Is
for
that?
me. This is
No.
is not batik. No.
No.
I was checking, but no, they're not. My boyfriend has batik clothing. My stepdaughter has batik clothing. I am like a walking embodiment right now. If you love it, let it kill you with batik.
Yeah.
I recently just finished a round of batiking right before I came here. If anybody here needs some batik, like I do have some dye left from this last round. So that is something that I'm really interested in. Thank you for asking. Yeah. You know, I'm also recently like experimenting with more curries.
Interesting.
Yeah.
20-minute curries.
Well,
No such thing.
2 hour. And
Yeah.
there's no, like, not if it's going to be tasty, right?
That's right.
Somewhere like Melissa Clark was like, there's a 20-minute curry. There is definitely, it's a sheet pan curry.
Well, or you
right?
knock someone out.
Yeah.
They feel like it's 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they have amnesia.
Yeah.
And they come, yeah.
There's a sheet pan curry for that, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you said that you got to a similar place to Hannah P. in the book by the end of the book. And do you think that you needed to write that book to get to that place, or do you think you could have? Do you think writing books is a vehicle? Like, I often wonder this myself, like whether the process, the subject, is also, and you're engineering it to like explore and get yourself to the place that you want to be or might be able to be.
For me, it is, that's a great question. Thank you. I cannot manufacture an epiphany, like a real one. But I have found that quite accidentally, almost every book, but especially the last 2 books, because they've been the most personal for me, they are a personal catharsis, right? Like it is literally a shedding of like a purification, like a bleeding. And I did not go after contentment when writing this book, and kind of an acknowledgement of a lack of control. Like I'm in my life, I have been very much like a one-sided Kandinsky painting, you know, like I'm all control, all control, all control. And I think with this book, I've realized like I'm actually a little bit more like chaos control. Like I'm both sides, and I'm comfortable with that. Like I cannot control how I'm going to be perceived. Like, I understand that there is a young version of me watching this who is like incredibly disappointed that I am being funny and not being serious, because I spent so much of my life thinking in order to be taken seriously, you have to be a serious person. And but this is also mistaking, like a lot of people think it's similar to saying just because you have a sense of humor means you're funny, and that's not true at all, right? You can have you probably know a lot of people who have a great sense of humor, but like they tell a joke and you're like, God, that's not funny at all. And along sometime in writing this book and in writing the last one, I realized like you can be funny and you can be serious, but whether or not you're taken seriously, you have no control over that, right? And I think I would like to be taken seriously, but mostly I would like people to laugh. But if they could also think I'm funny and smart, like, that would be ideal. But if they don't think any of those things, that's okay. Because like, you know, there's a bald guy I can make laugh, and there's a 14-year-old who thinks I'm pretty funny. And like most of the time, my family thinks I'm funny too. That's okay, right? Yeah. Thank you. And we have time for one more.
We have one more.
I'm curious about this book and in your memoir, the people that you depict, like memoirize more accurate, true to life. This is, you take some artistic license. How do you navigate people's reactions to how they are portrayed? Like, your students don't read your book, but I'm sure everyone else is like, what did she say about me? Or how, like, is that what she really thinks about me? Like, how do you manage their expectations before they read it? How do you handle their reactions after they've read it?
I think anytime you're going to write nonfiction or a memoir, right? If you're writing about yourself, I try not to manage what people are feeling. I try to let them have their feelings and then truly respond to it. I think some people in my family had big feelings after my memoir, and that they're allowed to have their big feelings, and we talked about it. So I think in strong relationships they can become stronger. Weak relationships, perhaps those relationships weren't meant to last anyway. And then, but with regards to like this book, it really is a novel. I mean, there's a talking cat, and you know, I don't break off celery at the grocery store. These are my two. See, it can't be real. And I have never left my car at the grocery store when walking home, but I've thought about it, and I thought this would be a really good cry for help, right? Like there's something wrong, and to cry and not know that you're crying, to be told constantly that you're crying and not to know. I was just looking at what would be excellent demonstrations of there's a problem, but I am learning to not try to manage other people's feelings. But that does mean that, you know, I might get the silent treatment sometimes, and I don't like disappointing people. I have still not been able to leave that behind. Like I am at the end of the day, as much as I try not to be, I am a people pleaser, which means I don't like it when there's a problem. But that just means I'm going to try to like pick at somebody until they're ready to talk to me. Like, you know, I will just pick.
But you're a dolphin that likes to get a little high is the problem.
That's right. But they make gummies for that.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I read your book.
I think y'all, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you to everybody who came out tonight. Thank you for everyone who asked questions. Thank you, Karah, for moderating, and thank you to Hannah for celebrating the launch with us. We really appreciate it. I do have a few final reminders. If you're still with us in the live stream, you can purchase a copy of the book by clicking the link in the live stream description. For everybody in person, we do have additional copies at the front where Tiff and Nesham are. Hannah will be signing and personalizing books right at that alcove where Tiff is pointing right now. So I know we're all friends and we're really excited to say hi, but please wait for the signing line. When you do get up, make sure you take all your stuff. We're going to break down the room really quickly. So that's it.
Cool.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Here's this.
We don't so fast.